So the fact that you've gotten into casting and it's something that you didn't want to do, starting your own business, Bill Dance Casting, how did you do that? What brought you to doing that actual thing?
Well, I actually stood in on a project.
Mm-hmm.
Someone, a person actually had done a stage show with this actor, asked me to stand in for them on a pilot that they were doing, which I did. It was only like a 12-day pilot that they shot. And while I was standing in, you don't realize that people are watching you. You figure, well, I better make my contacts. Who can I talk to? You know, how can I network this whole thing?
Right.
I was very naive. I just did my work professionally. I was quiet. I was professional. A stand-in has to memorize all the blocking. We learn the lines. You just take that extra effort to show that you're very focused at what you do.
Right.
Well, I guess people watched me over that. And this producer came to me. It was almost the day after finishing this project and said, I would like you to do this on my next project. And I said, do what? And he said, I'll call you in a week. And it was organizing all of the casting, all of the extras. They knew a little bit of my background. They had watched me. They thought I was very sensitive, that I had intuition, that I was very serious. I was very passionate about my work. I'm a very serious person.
Yeah.
I take my work very seriously. That's kind of how I've developed my business. It's an art form.
Right.
It's not just hiring bodies on a set. And so this is the trademark that I've established for Bill Dance Casting, because we seem to get the difficult films.
Right.
I mean, last week we had to get 700 nude people to be in this movie.
Wow.
Nude.
That's not easy to do.
No, it's not. And then you deal with extreme groups. Well, are they going to want to do it when they get there? Are they going to freak out? And then you get the nudists who are coming on.
Right.
Excuse me, you have to keep on the pasties. You have to keep this on. You can't just rip your clothes off.
Right.
And this is done at a big hotel in Hollywood. But it went very well because I made sure that it took me 3 weeks to prep it. It did not happen overnight. So I laid the groundwork. I knew the emotions that I was dealing with. So just as you put together the real people for a project, which is highly emotional, it takes a lot of work. I just don't throw a body into a scene. I make sure that not only do they look correct, but what is the energy coming behind this person? What creates the realism? So that when you put them in the scene, it's a part of the environment that the actor is in. Your environment as an actor is very important.
Yes.
You sense where you are, who is there.
Right.
Not only what it looks like. Another example in A Beautiful Mind, which I did with Russell Crowe.
Yes.
I knew Russell's intensity. I knew it going into it. I'd met him before we started shooting. And we were at Princeton University. So I did these massive calls at Princeton, and all the real mathematicians showed up, all the graduate students. I had to place real mathematicians around him. Because you have to understand, you're shooting for 12 hours that day. Russell is a consummate actor. He is so intense. He's studying the grass. He's just eating up everything like you can't imagine. And he's very detailed. He started talking in between takes to the mathematical kids that I placed there. And you can look in their eyes and you could see the tilt. You can see that their minds, which are so accelerated, they were thinking numbers 24 hours a day. They were just thinking, feeling, and the gaming theory. And so Russell started talking to them. So I placed about 25 mathematicians around him, so he became a part of his environment.
I see.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Exactly what you mean.
Rather than just an extra. This was real stuff, big time.
Yes.
So that's kind of what I'm known for doing, is hiring realism. I will take it the next step, and not just but I will hire what's real, what's natural. And especially if it's someone who's experienced what you're hiring makes all the difference in the world. When I did The Grinch with Ron Howard, how are you going to create Whoville? How do you create this? You read the books, you see the visualization of what these characters look like. So they asked me, how are you going to show us these people? And then you have Rick Baker, who won the Oscar for all the prosthetics and the whimsicalness of all of that. Are you going to find me facial types that I'm able to do this, the physiognomy of the face, the tightness of the nose and the eyes? I can't have a big nose. How are we going to end? Is the skin going to be allergic? Are they going to be claustrophobic? So you have all these things that you have to keep in mind when you're doing this. So my first step was to just take a breath. And I said to my associate Terrence, I said, all right, we should do a tape. All right, so that was step one. So you're putting all the elements on the table. How do we approach this? So the first step was a demi-plie. Okay, now what's the next step? Well, let's get them to create a character.
Wow.
We don't have a script. They're not going to say lines. So
Right.
they had to create a character of who they were in Whoville.
Mm-hmm.
They had to wear a costume. They had to do their hair. And they had to bring a physical prop. And they had to write Susian dialogue. They had to create a character. That was my one requirement, that they come to the plate,
Right.
that they come to the audition, just putting them on tape,
Mm-hmm.
with all of this subtext, with all of this underbelly, if you will.
Wow.
So we put about 100, I think it was about 150 people on tape, and it was absolutely hysterical.
I'm sure.
I thought I was going to go out of my mind. They were all art performance people,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
very whimsical and very,
Right.
doing things. And,
Movement.
oh, very much so.
Yeah.
And what was the gait? What was the move? But they were all like art performance, from jugglers to contortionists.
Mm-hmm.
And what these people did was unbelievable. Plus, visually,
Mm-hmm.
they made choices of what they had to look like. Not with prosthetics, but just with their own hair. I had a Ringling Brothers person with me who in the hallway we did egg whites to the hair. So this tape I still have to this day. We showed to Ron Howard. I refused to give them the tape because I thought, this is so insane. This is so over the top. I cannot let this tape go. I
Right.
will be arrested. This tape is so outrageous and so outlandish.
Right.
And they said, you have to give us the tape. So finally, I just let it go, and I was terrorized that I was going to be so insulted and so embarrassed. How
Right.
could you do something like this?
Right.
Because it was over the top. It
Right.
was just so bizarre.
Right.
That's how they picked the characters. And they were all different. And each one did the work. You had to do the homework.
Mm-hmm.
Now, these are just background artists,
Right.
if you will.
Mm-hmm.
But they weren't. They were heartbeats. They were characters that had to come forth, in terms of creating Whoville.
Right.
That was the deal. And some of them got upgraded and, and so forth and so on. Then you start putting Rick Baker's prosthetics.
Right.
Then they start to come to, and Rita Ryak with all the clothes.
Mm-hmm.
Then you start putting them together. And a clown's nemesis is Dr. Seuss. I didn't realize that. So what I did, I had touched something within these people that just made them flourish.
Right.
I mean, it was just amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And I did see that film, and it really was, childhood coming to life
Mm-hmm.
for me. It was so awesome.